Our gospel today comes from the Gospel of Mark, where we read, Jesus began to teach his disciples that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If anyone to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." Let us pray. O Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard, and we do ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Please be seated. Well, of course, you don't have to answer this out loud, though all our answers will be the same. Who of you has ever been tempted? And who of you, ever having been tempted, has given in to temptation? Well, today we are continuing our sermon series called The Sweet Spot. And in the sweet spot, we're talking about that point in life where we are at our very best. We're talking about that point in life where we are truest to our truest self. As one individual, an 8-year-old boy described it, he described the sweet spot, or he said this about the sweet spot: if you do the sweet spot just right, you set yourself up to be completely awesome. If you do the sweet spot just right, you set yourself up to be completely awesome. Well, he was close. He was close. In the Christian tradition, we understand the sweet spot just a little differently. We understand it not so much in terms of being awesome ourselves, but in terms of being awesome in loving and serving others. So the sweet spot isn't so much about self-interest, it's about being interested in others. It's not so much about self-help, it's about helping others. It's not so much about me, it's about you. And so what it's really about is it's about love. And when you come right down to it, nothing's more awesome than love, right? I saw a great picture of this, and I added this into the sermon because I was just so touched by this. I saw a great picture of this yesterday, of what the sweet spot looks like. And you may know that yesterday we did a Children's Wellness Day over in the parish hall, and we had hundreds of people here. I mean, it was just spectacular. And the best thing about it was, if a quarter of them were St. Matthew's folks, I'd be surprised. It was almost completely people from the community. And it was just so great to see all the different colors, all the different dresses, just to see that rich, wonderful diversity of people gathered there. And in the one room, we did a bunch of different things. We did Zumba, and we did Tabata. I never quite know how to pronounce that. And a number of other things. Well, in the Zumba room, they had these kids dancing. And I'll just tell you what, watching kids dance, if there's any sweeter spot than that, I don't know what it is. And the thing is, it's not about them. They're not thinking about themselves at all. They have just given themselves with abandon over to the moment, completely free of any self-consciousness. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to move like they do. And just completely giving themselves over without reserve to the abilities that God has gifted them with, the way that God, the movement that God has enabled them to do. They just, watching them do that, I think it elevates anybody who sees that, because it's such a pure living in the moment, and the joy that they have in that moment. I couldn't help but feel my own spirit lifted and elevated by it. What a sweet spot that was. And it gained particular focus for me in it may be my favorite picture of all time. And perhaps you've seen it, perhaps you haven't. But the older daughter, her name was Lisa, of April, of the instructor who was teaching the kids yoga. She sort of helped me with a couple poses. And I think they were called Little Crow and Big Crow. And she thought that I might be able to do Little Crow, but she wasn't sure about Big Crow. But she showed me Big Crow anyhow, and actually Big Crow was a little easier. But when I got Big Crow, she just, and somebody caught the exact moment, Hillary caught the exact moment, she leaps with joy. In the moment, she's actually off her feet. She's in the air. She has this huge smile on her face because because it wasn't about her at all. What brought her such unbridled joy that she literally leaped with joy was that she had helped somebody else succeed. I mean, to care about somebody else enough, even in that moment, that she found such ultimate pleasure in the success of somebody else. See, if that's not the sweet spot, I don't know what it is. The sweet spot is the difference between that authentic smile. When you see that authentic smile, everybody else wants to smile too. It elevates everybody else. And a pouting selfie. A world of difference between those two, isn't there? Now, Jesus was the master at the sweet spot. And that's part of the reason that we remember Jesus for 2,000 years, is that Jesus was a master at living from the sweet spot. As he makes crystal clear in today's gospel, he knew exactly what his course in life was, exactly what his path in life was. And he knew that when he followed this path, when he was true to God's call on his life, this would keep him true to himself, and that this would keep him true to his ability to love well. And so Jesus refuses to turn to the right or left. He refuses to veer off at all, because he knows that doing so, veering off from this true path which God has called him, would damage himself, would make him less than the person God created him to be. And in so doing, it would diminish his ability to love other people. And the problem is that we don't do quite as well as living into the sweet spot as Jesus did. There are lots of things that take us out of the sweet spot in our own lives. So many things. One of those things is simply being overwhelmed. Being overwhelmed can take us out of the sweet spot like almost nothing else can. There is a number of articles that are written along the theme, and it's sort of surprising, but it's written along the theme, full plate, empty life. A lot of people think full plate is the way life is meant to be lived, but in reality, full plate, empty life, because a full plate just wears us out and tires us out so that we're not giving the best to anybody. Well, if you've ever felt overwhelmed, come back next week, because that's what we're talking about. Next week, the sermon is Eliminate the Overwhelm. Eliminate the overwhelm. So that's next week. You won't want to miss it. In fact, there might be people you want to invite to join us. But this week, we're talking about temptation. We're talking about how it is that all of us give in to temptation, and so we're taken out of the sweet spot. And whenever we give in to temptation, we feel ashamed, and therefore we feel like we need to hide from other people rather than love other people. We feel like we're bad. We feel like we can't change, like we're stuck in a course of action where we're always going to live outside that sweet spot. And so the call for us is to learn how to deal with temptation. To do that, the first thing we have to deal with is something that's called the what the heck effect. It's called something else, but we're making this a little bit kid-friendly here today. But it's called the what the heck effect. And the what the heck effect says that, or the way the what the heck effect works, is that when we give in to something that we know we shouldn't give into, is that we just say, what the heck, I already made a mistake, and so we just give into it wholeheartedly. We binge, we splurge, we let ourselves go out of control. It's sometimes also called the abstinence violation effect. That's the technical term for it, the abstinence violation effect. Because in our lives, if there are things that genuinely keep us from being loving, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about habits, behaviors, substances that keep us from genuinely being loving. And virtually all of us in our lives can look back to patterns that have worked against us from as long as we can remember. And so we're saying, if I really want to be in my sweet spot, I can't do that. You know, interesting statistic, only 17% of adults say they live from their sweet spot. Only 17% of adults say they're flourishing. Are you flourishing this morning? If not, are there areas of your life that keep you from flourishing? Is there something you can point to and say, boy, if only this was taken care of, I'd be flourishing. Well, what is that thing? And so we're going to abstain from that thing. If it's getting angry, I need to abstain from anger. If it's being cruel, I need to abstain from cruelty. If it's being impatient, I need to abstain from impatience. If it's overeating, I need to abstain from overeating. And so what happens is when we abstain from something, that second we indulge in it, we say, I blew it, what the heck? And then we go hog wild. That's the abstinence violation effect, the what the heck effect. We all know how it works with food. I'll tell you how it works with me, and it really does work this way for me. And frankly, it's humiliating. It really is humiliating because I tend to look at myself as a strong person with a lot of willpower, but in this I have absolutely no willpower whatsoever. I have no strength whatsoever. And so let's just say that for Lent I've given up sweets, which I have, and so let's say that I have made a bowl of delicious oatmeal. I put it in the freezer so I can just take it out and warm it up, and I'm going in the freezer to get my frozen bowl of oatmeal. Probably an image, isn't it? And so I go in there to get that, and all of a sudden I say, oh my goodness, there's one last pint of Ben & Jerry's that I forgot to eat before Lent. And I think about it in a second and say, oh, you know what the heck, God doesn't care, one bite, no big deal, I'll just have one bite. I take it out, one bite. Well, for me, eating ice cream is never, ever, ever a matter of, it's not even a possibility. As embarrassing as it is, me against a pint of ice cream, the pint of ice cream will win every single time. So I take that one bite and then I say, well, what the heck? What's another? And I have another. And then I say, oh, what the heck? I blew it. I'll get back on my Lenten disciplines tomorrow. I might as well just eat the whole pint. And then I eat the whole pint. And then I say, you know what the heck? I will get back on it tomorrow. I might as well make the most of today. And so I go to the store and buy another pint to eat that evening. And I wish I was exaggerating. And that's the abstinence violation effect, the what the heck effect. And I hope you know that it doesn't just apply to food. It applies to all kinds of things. When a person gets angry, being angry feels good. So, it lets the adrenaline flow. We feel like we're back in control. And so if we just give in to that little piece of anger, we say that harsh word that we know we don't really want to say, but in the moment just feels so much better to say. We say that harsh word and the anger begins to flow and we say, oh, what the heck? I'll get over it tomorrow, and we just really let a person have it with both barrels. If it's aggressive driving, we say, oh, you know, I knew I was going to drive a little more peacefully for them, but this person in front of me, they're so slow. What the heck? I'm going to pass this one car. And then, what the heck, I passed one of those 10 in front of me, I'm going to pass them too, and maybe I pass all 10 at the same time. If it's spending, if I have a problem spending, and if I'm carrying a balance over on my credit cards, it's that one little purchase. Starts that one little purchase. I make that one little purchase. I say, I'm going to get out of debt. I'm going to get my finances back in control. I'm not going to carry any balance on my credit card. And then I do that one little purchase, and I say, oh, what the heck? And I go on a binge, and all of a sudden, my balance increases once again. If it's pornography, and people say, oh, pornography, what's the big deal with pornography? It doesn't hurt anybody. Well, fundamentally, it does hurt people. Because what it does, it teaches men to approach women as objects instead of people. And the people who look at it long enough, it really does affect their way that they relate to other people. But it also violates trust, and if you think about it for a moment, if my wife walked into my office and found on my desk a picture of another woman, and if it just so happened that other woman was Achidne, my wife would not be very happy, would she? She would not be a very happy camper. And so we might say there's not a big deal, but if what we're doing in the dark of night when our spouse is asleep is we fired up the computer and look at images, I have a feeling that would hurt our spouse. I have a feeling that'd be a pretty deep hurt. I have a feeling she'd feel betrayed. And so we think, okay, Lent, I might have done this for all this time, but no pornography during Lent. And then I just sort of happen upon a website, and I say, I already blew it. There's always tomorrow. What the heck? And then I download the video or spend the next hour on this site or see what else on there. You get how it works, right? You get how it works. And that's why people who really want to make changes, know they can't take that first step, that first little sip, take that first little action, because when they do, the great likelihood is they're going to say, what the heck? And they'll be right back where they started. So how do we avoid that? 4 simple things. First is we need to forgive ourselves, and we need to allow God's forgiveness to sort of clear the slate. And that's what forgiveness is really all about. Forgiveness isn't about God being mad with us and then not being mad with us the next second. No, God's not mad at you. God loves you. So just settle that. It's about God wanting a better life for you and God wanting a better life for me. And so forgiveness is about us getting back on track. It's about a brand new start where we don't have to carry any of that baggage from the past. And see, what happens is when people have done things for a long time that they wish they weren't doing, it could be speaking harsh words. It could be being impatient. It could be any one of a number of things. And when they say, I'm going to do it different, but they do it again, they feel terror about themselves. We feel terror about ourselves. We feel ashamed. And when we feel ashamed, we do two things. We go into hiding. But the other thing we do is, because we feel like nobody would love us if they really saw us, but the other thing we do is we start to believe that we're bad people. We start to believe that fundamentally we're bad people. And the second we start to believe that we're a bad person, what do bad people do? Bad things. So if I believe I'm a bad person, that actually justifies my continuing to do what I've already done. That's a natural thing for a bad person to do, the bad thing I've always been doing. And see, forgiveness says you're not a bad person. It says God created you, not just good, but very good. God's not mad at you. God loves you. Forgiveness says, here's a brand new start. The slate is clean. So stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop feeling bad about yourself. Stop feeling guilty, because none of those things are going to help you live a new and better life. They're just going to waste energy. They're going to waste time. They're going to waste brain space. So let God forgive you. Let God's grace permeate your life, and stop feeling like you're a bad person. Leave that shame behind. That's the first thing that we have to do. The second thing is we have to be absolutely resolute in saying, I'm going to take a new path. And maybe the easiest place to see this is with an alcoholic. Because an alcoholic, and every alcoholic knows this, every alcoholic says, I can never take another sip of alcohol again. And they have to come to that moment where they say, with no uncertainty, I'll never take another sip again. If they don't say that, they're not in recovery. They might think they are, but they're not. If we understand alcoholism as a sickness, which I think is probably the best way to understand it, that person is still sick. That person is still dying. So until an alcoholic comes to that point where they say, never again, not one more drop, I can't do one more drop, no sip under any circumstance, it's forbidden to me. Because if I participate, even that little sip, it's what the heck? And I'm lost. And everybody around me is lost too. Well, it's easy to see that with alcohol. But maybe we should approach anger the same way. Maybe we should approach overspending the same way. Maybe we should approach being overweight the same way. You say, wait a second, overweight's not being like being, well, maybe in some ways it is, because at its best, losing weight isn't about, it's not a narcissistic enterprise in appearance. It's about saying, I'm at my healthiest, my happiest, and most energetic when I'm not carrying around extra pounds, when I'm not feeling like I'm an absolute slave to sugar, because sugar functions like cocaine in the brains of some of us. And so it's saying, so this isn't about me at all. Losing weight really isn't about me at all. It's about me wanting to love you. It's about knowing this is when I'm at my best for you. This is when I'm most able to serve you. When I have the energy, when I'm not dragged down by that extra weight, when I'm not dragged down by that mental torture that comes at knowing I'm a slave to a pint of ice cream. You see, and so I might have to make the same kind of resolution in regard to eating as somebody would make in regard to something else. So if we're ever going to change, all of us have habits that take us out of the sweet spot. All of us have proclivities. All of us have behaviors. We look on our life, we recognize those things. We've probably struggled with them for as long as we can remember. If we're ever going to be free of them, there's got to come a moment where we say, no more. This is it, today, last day. That's the beauty of the evangelical understanding of conversion. There's maybe some weak parts to that too, but that's the beauty of it, because it says two things. It says there comes a point where I'm going to say no more, and there comes a point when I'm forgiven. And I can have it be no more. But if I don't come to that point where I say I'm going to do things differently, I don't have this right today, but if I don't come to that point where I'm going to do things differently, then there really there is no new start. There is no better path. Then that brings us to the third thing we do. The third thing we need to do is we need to make a plan. And we do need to make a plan. We need to be very specific about knowing what our triggers are, about what takes us down that path, and what we're going to do to avoid it. And that plan needs to be very specific. If it's late at night when I'm tired and I don't have very much self-control, my wife has gone to bed and there's nobody who's going to check up on me, and that's when I fire up the computer and start looking at those images, then I need to have a plan to avoid that. And maybe I don't need to tell anybody, but maybe I just say, hey, actually, you probably do need to tell somebody. I'll get to that in a second. But you want to be careful about who you tell. But maybe you just say to your wife or to whoever, honey, I'm going to just make it a rule for myself. Every night at 7 o'clock, I'm turning off my computer. And I'd like to get a little bit more sleep and help me do that. So every night, 7 o'clock, the computer goes off without fail. You make a plan because you know that what's going to happen if it comes 1 or 2 in the morning, some of us 10 or 11 at night, and our wife's in bed and the computer's open, we're going to end up somewhere we don't want to be. So make a plan. Be specific. Know what your triggers are. Figure out how you're going to avoid them. Figure all that out ahead of time. And then the final thing is, the final thing is just to pull together a small group, a team, a community, people who will help you change. And here's the simple truth. Absent a group of people who can love you and support you and hold you accountable in this, you won't change. I won't change. I know that about you because I know that about myself. And the reason that so many people never, ever, ever live from their sweet spot, the reason that only 17% of people feel like they're flourishing, the reason that most people will be struggling at 80, what they struggled with at 60, at 20, is because they never pulled together a group of folks who could really help them change because they weren't ever really interested in changing in the first place. So if you really want to change, you have to have some people who really know you, who know what the struggle is. You have to have some people who you trust implicitly. You don't tell everybody. Might be 1 or 2 or 3 people. I mean, you keep it at, and then there's that small group of people who can just hold you accountable, who can love you, who can pray for you, and help make that change a reality. Absent that, I do not believe change is possible. All right? I believe God sometimes God works in miraculous ways, but more often He works through that group of people who will help us become the people that we want to be. That's why we believe in small groups in this church. That's why it's our dream that everybody in this church would be in some sort of small group that can hold people accountable and help them become the people they want to be. If we do these things, the good news is, I'm running out of time, but the other thing I just wanted to say in relation to this morning's gospel is that making these changes really does feel like a death. And that's why Jesus uses cross imagery. He's not just talking about becoming more of ourselves. He's talking about really ceasing to do something, less of something. He's talking about a death. A way we've done something for years and years and years, the way that's most comfortable to us. If I'm most comfortable getting angry, that's how I take control of a situation. It just feels good to me. If I stop being angry, that's going to feel like a death because you know why? It is a death. It is a death. There's a part of me that had to die. If I stop eating white sugar or unrefined flours, and I've done that all the years of my life, that's going to feel like a death. It's going to feel like a fate worse than death. You know why? Because it is. Because it's doing something different and I've already done it. And that's why Jesus used this cross imagery. The good news is if we do these 4 things, if we receive God's forgiveness and forgive ourselves, if we make a resolution that, man, today is the day that all this is going to change, if we plan on a way to make that resolution a reality, and then we pool a team or a community or small group of good folks around us who can help us stay true to that path, the good news is we can take up our cross, walk the path of love. And the good news is that we'll keep walking that path. We won't slip and fall, but we'll stay true to that path, and we'll love others like God has loved us. Is that good news? If that's good news, say a hearty amen. Amen. Amen.